Next, we're going to be changing gears a little bit. I got to sit down with Dustin Lehr. Now, Dustin Lehr is pretty prolific in the world of cybersecurity, but one thing that he's really known for is becoming an advocate for security champions. Security champions are people inside your organization that can affect change from within. Dustin Lehr is the author behind the Security Program Success Guide. He's also building an entire conference around security champions, and he's prolific content creator around this topic. He's full of knowledge, and I got to sit down with him and ask him exactly how one creates a security champions program, the mistakes they made, and what the nuts and bolts of that actually looks like. So without further ado, let's dive into our conversation with Dustin Lehr at Black Hat Vegas 2025. All right, hello everyone. Well, I'm thrilled to be here with Dustin Lehr. And Dustin, I was trying to figure out how to introduce you. You're a very difficult man to introduce because you're not really Dustin that works at X for X. You have a lot of things going on. So maybe it's best if you introduce yourself for a little bit.
I do have kind of the elevator pitch down now in terms of how to introduce myself. Yeah, so former software engineer for over a decade. Led AppSec teams at multiple companies. So kind of rolled out AppSec, in general, all the things, SDLC, right? Secure SDLC. And then I currently do consulting right now. So vCISO, vAppSec work, as well as I run a meetup called Let's Talk Software Security. And I also do part-time work for Security Journey, as well as I founded a company, Catalyst, that focuses on security champions.
So you sound like you're a man with a lot of time on your hands.
Yeah, I'm quite busy, and I actually enjoy the context switch, like everything that I just described. My life used to be heads down software engineer, like constantly working on sort of one thing at a time.
Yeah.
Now it's kind of all over the place, and I actually really enjoy that. I think it's energizing.
I wanted to start off with covering just the basics. What is a security champion? Let's start there.
Yeah, the way I like to describe security champions, and you walked right into my favorite topic. I just love talking
almost
about
like I
this.
planned about it.
Yeah, exactly. It is so interesting to me because it's a way to get more people involved in cybersecurity in general, which we know this, right? We could use the help.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So your team is limited, small security team typically compared to the rest of the organization. And security champions are basically folks who are allies of security that you find across your company that are there to kind of help you promote security, scale, to some degree. That doesn't mean getting all of the responsibilities onto the security champions. Like the security team is still there and they have a very important job to do. But the champions are more advocates, right? Or I like to describe them as liaisons, right, between the security team as well as the development team. And that's sort of a two-way communication opportunity, right? Because the champions can help you as a security person understand what the dev teams are going through, as an example. And then the dev teams can sort of get, information from the security team to sort of clarify, what needs to be done for security on their dev team, right? So it's a good two-way communication opportunity.
Security isn't always the most friendly topic to bring up with developers because it can be seen as something that slows development down, right? Which is kind of generally the number one. How do you find someone or convince someone that security doesn't need to be a blocker if that's what they've been hearing forever?
Yeah, I might disagree with some of that. Okay. So this is going to be interesting.
Let's go.
I think that most software engineers want to write high quality software, and quality includes security, right? I think a lot of the roadblocks that champions or developers run into is more at the leadership and product level, right? If that makes sense, they're trying to push for higher quality software and they're being, that's being resisted, right? So they're having trouble pushing for the things that they need to push for in order to make good, high quality software. But that's not true for every software engineer either. Like I've met plenty, I'm not going to name any names, who just kind of wanted to get things out the door and almost hack, code together. Those are not going to make good champions. And the thing is, they're going to sort of self-select. Like as you go out there and you talk to people, if you're on the security team, you're going out there, you're talking to people, you're meeting people, on development teams, development leadership positions, etc. You're going to have people emerge that are like, I care about this. I've been trying to push my team to follow higher quality standards or more security standards. And then those are your allies. Those are your initial champions. So it's just a matter of kind of putting the message out there and seeing who responds.
I do agree with you that no developer wants insecure code, right? There's no one wants crappy code.
Right.
But, and I also agree with you when it comes from other areas, because sometimes it's a lot of just the pressure that the management team is pushing down. Right. So the pressure isn't to create beautiful, high quality, efficient code. It's to release the feature that they promised to a customer, like 3 weeks ago, and like worry about it later.
Exactly. But then I would say that it's the developer's responsibility to stand up for what's right there.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're the expert, right? They're the ones writing the code, designing the system, etc. If they want, product wants something to get released quicker, it's really their job to say, in order to do this right, here's what we need to do. We need a little bit of extra time. We need an extra week to build this correctly, or whatever it is, because that's going to save us time in the long run.
Yeah.
And this is an important conversation, right? Like to be so reactive and sort of quick to release features by hacking code together is going to hurt you in the long run. Right?
Yeah.
And again, I think it's up to engineers to really stand up for that and say, hey, I was troubleshooting issues in production all last week. How can we get ahead of this? Like, how can we build higher quality code in general so that we're not wasting our time, fixing issues going forward?
And how do you make that argument with you gave a few hints just then, but you're a developer.
Mm-hmm.
It can be kind of scary, to say, oh, actually, I need more time, because I guess my reaction when I was a developer would be like, oh, they're going to think I'm crap.
I actually find people respect that more.
Okay.
Yeah. Like if you're saying, and here's the thing, like there's a lot of power in the developer's hands as well, because they get asked for estimates.
Yeah.
Right? It's not like the product team or even their leadership has the expertise as far as the code base and how it works and so forth to say, you will do this feature and you will do this in this period of time. What they do is they ask you, right? How much time is this going to take? And that's your opportunity to say, well, if I hack it overnight, it's going to be a day. If I take the time to build this correctly in a way that's maintainable and performant and high quality, right? In general, it's going to take 3 days as an estimate, right?
Yeah. So
the power really is in the developer's hand to just say, hey, this is how long I need to build a high quality piece of code.
Yeah, I like that. And I like that you're pushing back, because I think that people like me, I'm a security champion myself, I'm an advocate, but sometimes we kind of get these ideas in our heads that everyone hates security and everyone says that and all of that.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just need someone to say no.
Absolutely. Now I will say this, that it's not that they've spent necessarily a lot of time studying security, right? So they might need guidance and direction, and to some degree they may not know what they don't know, right? So how can we sort of educate them and help them understand what the nuances are in terms of building high quality and secure code? That's a completely different issue, though. The desire is there. I do think, and frankly, I've been talking to a lot of software engineers lately, especially here at Black Hat, believe it or not. They're walking around. Well, they're among us, which is amazing. But they talk about it like, I'm learning how to use AI and vibe code. I knew that AI would come up, right?
Yeah.
How could we not talk about AI? But I'm using these tools, but I'm trying to learn how they're building code to make sure that it's high quality.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's amazing, because I think a lot of AppSec people and cybersecurity people are like, devs don't care about security. They're just going to pump out code with AI tools. They're not going to care. It's just not true. Now, again, I will say there's a spectrum. And I won't name names, but I have worked with people and they don't care. It's like, I'm just going to produce code as quickly as I can, whatever. Okay, those are not the people that we're talking about. They have a lot to learn, right? But for the most part, I do think devs really care about building high quality code. That's their craft, right?
Yeah, and, absolutely. And no one wants to be the developer that introduced a bug that brought down production.
Of course, it's embarrassing.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been there. I broke the build. So
I have a couple of kind of similar questions, but I want to ask basically the same question, but from two different personas. So I want to ask first, we've got a lot of developers that listen to the show. They're probably the type, it's a security show, so they're probably the type that are interested in security.
Potential champion.
Potential
These are the
champion,
allies I'm talking about.
So you're in a company. There's no security champion program per se. Maybe it hasn't come up. People don't know about this. What does that developer do to start a conversation? What does step one look like? Because when they, the developer goes, I want to start a security champions program, and then the reaction will be, great, what is that?
Right.
like what is that? What is step number one?
Yeah. I think you start small, right? I don't think you come in guns blazing saying, hey, let's create this complex program right out of the gate. I think it's a lot more of how can I get in closer touch with my security team, and then create some sort of community around that. Let's meet every month and talk about security as developers, and then sort of see who else is interested in joining. And then you just sort of start that grassroots thing and see where it goes from there. I wouldn't even call it a champion program. It's more like, how do I connect with my security group and just have a conversation? I think that's the best place to start.
Okay, same question, but this time you're not a developer. This time you're working in security, you're in management, you're a tech lead, a CTO, whatever, and you see this as a real issue. What do you do? What does that person do? How do you find your first champion?
Yeah. So it's similar to what I was saying before in terms of going out there and finding how people respond to your message, right? And this has everything to do with culture change in general.
Yeah.
If you're being very clear about, hey, these are the changes I want to see, I want to make sure that we're writing high quality code, whatever it is, and you go out there and you start evangelizing that and having conversations with folks, some people are going to ignore that. Like there's a spectrum. Right? Like I always talk about the diffusion of innovation in terms of describing a population. You're going to have laggards who are just like, I don't care about what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I'm too busy. Like, leave me alone.
Yeah.
But then you're going to have the other side of that. And this is awesome. Like, I'm glad you're here trying to push changes because I've been trying to push changes myself. How do I get involved? Right?
Yeah.
And now those are the people that I would also recommend you just start talking to more. Bring them in, right? Start to build a community, start to meet with them every month, have a conversation about security. And then you go from there. You're talking about Grassroots, how to start it, but there's a lot of structure, there's a lot of depth and engagement and a lot of questions in terms of how to build like a more official program and have it sustain over time. So that's kind of the next phase that we could talk about as well if you want.
Well, that was literally going to be my next
I'm getting excited. I don't want to jump the gun.
But I mean, so phase one, I like that. It's like starting something small because, just start with one activity, one thing to do it.
Yep.
Now let's look at a mature program, and you happen to have a very great resource for this.
Security Champions Program Success Guide.
Success Guide. There we are. Right. There's a link for that wherever you are watching or listening to this. Highly recommend everyone check that out if they're looking for this. But following the principles of those guides, we talked about what it looks like on day one. What does it look like a couple of years down the line?
Yeah, now things are getting serious. You've created a community, you have sort of a following, you have people that are involved. It does, within a few months, I think you can sort of take the next step and say, hey, there are people interested in this. Now it's time to step back and formalize it. Right. And where I think that starts, which is on the guide that you mentioned, is saying, what do I want to accomplish with this program? Right. Yeah. And there's a little bit of a thing that I like to talk about. And that's that, I do think your goals with your champion program are the same goals that you're trying to accomplish with your AppSec program in general.
But does it feel like something that it takes a while to get up and running, to kind of really, really get it? It's not something that's going to happen overnight. Is that what your experience has been like, or is it the opposite?
I think the change that you're trying to see in terms of the behaviors across the organization are going to take a while to see, right? Yeah. But in terms of standing up this initial champion program, that can happen very quickly. And then I think within a few months, if you take the time to sort of figure out, hey, what are the goals that I'm trying to accomplish? How am I going to kick this off, right? I do think it takes time up front to kind of figure all that out, ideally. You kind of only have like one shot, or people are going to say, oh, the champion program failed, right? So I do think it's worth, once you have that momentum, stepping back and making sure, that you follow the guide that we're talking about and make sure you design something that's going to last. But then it's a matter of seeing that change happen, right?
Yeah.
The behaviors that you're trying to reinforce and so forth. It does take a while to kind of build that momentum.
So let's talk about the change in behaviors and things, because one of the areas, and you kind of touched on it, is that you said you only get one shot, well, more or less, right? Because if it fails, then it's going to be a very hard conversation to bring that back up.
Exactly.
Get resources for it. What are the metrics, KPIs, whatever you want to call them, of a successful security program? Because if you do go to, let's say you're a developer and you want to get some support behind this, then there has to be some way to measure its success. But as you said, if we're looking at like security incidents, like that's gonna, like, we've got a long tail of being able to see change and all of that. So there's a couple of things that you could measure immediately, like what's happening, who's coming, things like that.
Yep. Attendance.
Mm-hmm. What else can you kind of point to and say, these are what I'm going to base it on? And if in a year I hit this or whatever, I want more of this, that, whatever it is. Yeah.
You're bringing the softball questions
Yeah.
today, aren't you? This is one of the biggest talking points, I think, in general, when people think about security champions. How do they actually demonstrate that they're working at the end of the day? And you're right. I think you can start with simple things. Are people participating? Are they speaking up? Are they getting involved? But then there's more risk-focused activities that you should be designing for. And when I talk about goals, and when I talk about having your champion program helping you meet your AppSec goals, they're the same, right? So what are you trying to accomplish in AppSec in general? Reduction in vulnerabilities, more proactive SDLC habits, right? Like design reviews, are security requirements included in product requirements or feature requirements going forward, right? All of that sort of stuff you can measure, right? And then you can say, hey, look, we're having an impact at the end of the day. Some of my favorite initial measurements are security issues being brought to us, like reported, right? And that's sort of an early win, because when that relationship is established, like I was sharing earlier, and you have that liaison, you now have people who are comfortable with your security team. Hey, they're just normal people. That's cool. And as long as you've created a safe environment for them as well, which is a whole different thing that we could probably talk about, you're not going to punish people for reporting issues, right? Then they start to bring issues to you, and you can start to measure that immediately. I've actually used that, as a demonstration of success of the program. Hey, we didn't know about this stuff before. It was like radio silent. We started creating security champions. They now have a comfortable line of communication for us. And look, they're reporting things. We now have more risks that we're aware of that we weren't aware of before.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's a good early win metric, I think, to have.
So let's take the scenario where you've found your security champions. They're obviously probably enthusiastic, and as you've said, that's how you're going to find them, right? They're going to be the ones that put their hands up first. But how do you get them to engage? How do you give them tools?
This is a great question, and another one of my favorite topics, frankly, because I've started to study a lot about behavioral science and essentially how people work at the end of the day. Which was interesting for me because I was a software engineer. I was like heads down. I don't want to talk to anyone. I don't care about people, But when I started to build security champion programs, it was a matter of, okay, how do I get people engaged? How do I get them motivated and so forth? So I went down this path of learning about gamification, learning about human motivation and all that fun stuff. I think you really have to lean into that, right? So learning about things like recognition and rewards, right, and incentives, and how people are properly incentivized, to do certain things, then they'll do it, right? And thinking about positive reinforcement versus punishment and all of that sort of stuff. I think that's just really important to understand and to design your program, with those things in mind, essentially.
Yeah.
So my favorite acronym is SAPS. This is from the gamification world. It stands for status, access, power, and stuff. And I like to talk about this because I think people think incentives, rewards, they go straight to stuff.
Yeah.
They're like gift cards, hoodies,
Yeah.
stickers. But there's so many other ways to sort of recognize people that's beyond that, right?
Yeah.
So status is essentially putting a label on somebody, Like you are a level 3 champion, or you're a black belt champion, or whatever that is.
Yeah.
That means something to people,
Yeah.
right? Like I always use the example of being promoted. What do you care about when you're promoted? Is it the extra money, or is it the actual increase in responsibility, power, the recognition, of what you've accomplished? And then kind of that status symbol of, hey, my title has improved, right? Everyone can see that. It's a huge deal. Same thing applies for champions as well. Access is one of my favorite ones to talk about as well, because I've been able to be pretty creative with this. I do think that people are naturally curious about security incidents and so forth that occur at your company. If you can sort of limit that to some degree and say, hey, we can't show this with just anyone, but if you earn a certain status as a security champion, we'll bring you into the inner circle and we'll share more of this stuff with you. That is super effective, right? Because I think folks are like, cool, I am curious about this and I can actually earn my way into learning more. The other way I've used access is with like Burp as an example.
Yep.
Like here's a tool that you could use irresponsibly. But if you can sort of show us that you can use it in a way that is responsible, then we can give you access to it, right? So, and then power, I think, is pretty straightforward. It's the ability to make decisions, help provide feedback to the program and so forth. So, yeah. So that's a little starter teaser.
I love it. I love it. And then have some stuff in there as well at the end.
Stuff is still cool.
Stuff is still cool.
Pizza always works.
Yeah. Nice.
So,
nice.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, Dustin, thanks so much for joining me. I don't want to take up any more of your time, but it's been a great conversation. It's been a good conversation when I have notes and I haven't looked at them once. So it's
great.
Yeah. But I really appreciate you taking the time.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. This was great.